Well, you gotta give Disney this much. They are always gonna find a way to get as much mileage out of a property as they can. End product be damned. Lightyear is brought to us by director Angus MacLane and stars Chris Evans, Keke Palmer, and Peter Sohn. While spending years attempting to return home, marooned space ranger Buzz Lightyear encounters an army of ruthless robots commanded by Zurg, who are attempting to steal his fuel source. So Lightyear's a weird situation where it is a spin-off of the Toy Story series, but not in the traditional sense. As we find out in a message in the very beginning of the movie, this is not real-life Buzz Lightyear, but this is the movie that Andy saw, the little kid from Toy Story, that made him fall in love with Buzz Lightyear and want that toy so much. So this is the movie that the toy Buzz Lightyear in the original Toy Story is based on. Now there's some issues that arise from that idea unto itself, but I'm just gonna look at this movie as a standalone movie all on its own. And when it comes to the Toy Story franchise, I've always thought it was pretty good. I mean, the first one I thought was good, the second one I thought was really good, the third one I wasn't as hype on, it was fine, and the fourth one, honestly, I never even saw. So I'm not coming into this thing just in love with Toy Story and in love with Disney. I'm going to look at this as objectively as possible. Now, I did come into this thing thinking this is a movie that's probably made for those fans, like those hardcore fans of Toy Story. And while I do appreciate the Toy Story films and I enjoy them, I'm not that guy. But color me a bit surprised that that's not really what this movie was. Sure, there is some nostalgia bait here or there, but not nearly as much as I was expecting. Regardless of what I actually thought of the end product, I do think that this movie did try and blaze its own trail, tell its own story, and in this time of remakes and retellings and feeding off of nostalgia bait, I think that that was pretty admirable. Now that being said, this movie does have its issues, and most of those issues are closer to the end. But before we get there, let's talk about what I did like about it. The first half of this movie was really cool. I really was into this thing. I was all in, more so than I thought I would be. I don't want to ruin the story, but basically Buzz and this colony of people are marooned on a planet. And in order for them to get off that planet and get back home, they have to develop a new fuel that will allow them to go into hyperspace. And Buzz takes on that responsibility because of some stuff that happens earlier in the story. Now, through a course of events, time gets a little weird. No, this isn't a spoiler because this is all over the trailer. Buzz ends up quite some time into the future, and now there's this new robot scourge called Zurg. And now it's up to him and a group of survivors to figure out how to defeat Zurg and save what's left of humanity. Pretty basic stuff overall. Now, the first half of the film deals with Buzz and his crew and how they got marooned on this planet and how they're trying to figure out this new fuel source so they can get home. And this part of the film is just really fun and creative. I was really enjoying this. This is also the part of the film, especially right there in the halfway point, that one of the most heartfelt moments in the movie happens. I don't cry at movies, but I ain't gonna lie, there was a part in this movie that I was like, oh damn, that's rough. They did a really good job of setting up these characters in this limited amount of time that you end up caring for. And seeing what happens to them over time really does affect you. I thought this half of the film was masterfully done, and I really wish they had continued on with that tone. However, if you hadn't guessed, that is not exactly what happens. Around about the halfway point of the movie, there is quite a switch. There's a thing that happens that changes the story considerably. Now, this thing that happens, I didn't have a problem with. I thought it was a natural progression of this story. I just didn't really care as much for where it went. I didn't dislike it. It's not like I hated the movie after this part. It's just everything that happened after this point didn't hit me nearly as hard as everything that led up to it. We get introduced to more or less a whole new cast of characters at this point, and while I didn't necessarily hate any of them, I didn't really love any of them either. I never felt a connection with them like I did with the characters leading up to this. It's like the first half of the movie was a really well thought out kind of character drama with some action in it, and the second half was like, okay, we just gotta have lots of action and stuff happening in it, so let's get this story moving. Here you go. The kids want to see big explosions and shooty bang bang and just cool stuff happening all over the screen. Don't take time with things, just make stuff happen. And oh yeah, don't forget to throw in a whole bunch of like quick wit, forgettable comedy, because you know that's what the kids are into nowadays. It just kind of lost some of its charm at that point. It's kind of like the first half of this movie is very much a Pixar movie, and the second half of the movie is a Disney movie, if that makes any sense to you. Now that being said, I was still on on board. As far as like where the story was going with this, I was okay with. My biggest issue with this part of the film is not the story and where it goes, it's how distant a lot of the characters feel. None of them feel as close or connected with you, the viewer, as they did prior to this switch. But story-wise, okay, fine, I'm on board, let's see where this thing goes. And I remained that way for quite a while. However, there's another switch in this film that would be the ending of the film. And when I say ending, I mean like the final third act. The third act of this movie, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw out there and say it, kind of unravels everything. It just kind of starts to fall apart and introduces some concepts and ideas that are, let's say, familiar to current film tropes and not necessarily the series as a whole. And yeah, I know that this movie is separate from the rest of the Toy Story franchise, but the ending of this movie and the big thing they happen, the trope that they go with, is really played out. I mean, this thing that happens in the end of the movie, granted, is a fairly newer trope within films, but man, it's a trope I'm already tired of. And that sucks, because this was an otherwise enjoyable story. I know I've been kind of vague with the story, and that's because I don't want to ruin it for those of you that haven't seen it. Because there is a reveal, there is a secret, there is a big spoiler that happens in this movie. And I think that might be one of my issues with the movie as well. Did this movie, the Buzz Lightyear movie, did it really need a spoiler, like a big spoiler thing? When did it become normal for every single movie out there to have some big twist? I mean, this isn't made by M. Night Shyamalan. Why does the Buzz Lightyear movie need a big reveal? It felt so shoehorned in. It's like they put it there just because, oh guys, we gotta have this twist because it's 2022. When they didn't need that. The thing that is the big reveal, the twist, it didn't have to be that. It could have just been what it seemed like on the surface. This is a situation where they overthought this thing. They took something that was fairly basic, but that was okay. It worked. Just roll with that. Make that cool. But no, their way of making it cool was they wanted to add more to it. They wanted to make it more complex, and it came across as just really muddled and sloppy. Overall, I didn't hate the story and execution here, but I definitely didn't love it, and I saw so much more potential that was really just squandered, especially there towards the end. Now, the characters and performances in the movie are all really well done. They are what we expect from Pixar. As I mentioned a bit ago, the characters in the first half of the film are the ones I enjoyed the most. It doesn't seem like they're the ones the movie wants you to enjoy the most. They really want you to get into these characters that are in the second half of the film, and I mean, they're fine, but I never felt that connection with them that I did with the characters in the first half. Everybody here does a fine job. Chris Evans, Keke Palmer, Taika Waititi, they're all on point, but there is one character out of all of these characters that I absolutely loved, and that would be the character of Socks, played by Peter Sohn. Socks is by far the best character in the movie, and I really just want a Buzz Lightyear and Socks movie. I don't care about all those other characters. Let's just get a Buzz Lightyear and Socks thing. In fact, Disney, you all about those shows on Disney Plus. Let's get a Buzz Lightyear and Socks show. The Adventures of Buzz and Socks. I don't know what the hell you call it. Whatever, just get those two and have adventures weekly. I'm on board. I love this character, and it will be a crime against humanity if he doesn't show up in another property at some point in time. But who are we kidding? This is Disney, and I'm sure this character is going to get a good reception, so he is definitely going to show up in about 1,000 different properties now. But yeah, overall, good characters and good performances all around. Guys, Lightyear was okay. It started out really strong, kind of plateaued a bit towards the middle, and then there at the end fell off a bit. We got some really solid performances, and I didn't mention it, but the movie does look great, but it's Pixar 2022, that's what we expect. I really like the story setup and where it was going, but then there at the end, it does take a bit of a dive, goes into Tropesville, and starts to lose a lot of its steam. It's not utter trash or anything, but it did have tons of potential that it never really capitalized on. And while I do think it's worth seeing, especially for fans, for me personally, I'd wait until it was available on streaming.
Across the street.
So yeah, Lightyear. If you're into Toy Story and all that stuff, you're probably gonna have a good time with it, so check it out when you get a chance. So there it is, guys, my review of Lightyear. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below, become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits to go along with that, like these guys, and possibly check out my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Silverlock and Marge G. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Space Command.
Buzz, that was utterly terrifying, and I regret having joined you.
So while watching this movie, one thing that I just couldn't get out of my head the whole time was, Where the hell's Tim Allen? I know some people have some real world differences with the guy and some of his beliefs and their beliefs and yada yada yada. I don't get it. Nothing against Chris Evans. I thought Chris Evans did fine as Buzz Lightyear here. People have differing opinions from other people, and I'm not sitting here siding with anybody or anyone or anything. I'm just saying people can have differing opinions on things and still get along in other spaces. Honestly, I don't really know that much about this situation. I just know that the guy has some different views from some other people, and now he's not in this movie. What those views are specifically, I really don't know. I keep my nose out of all that crap. But that's me, and yeah, I'm probably the crazy one. I do believe in a separation between church and state, and yes, my church is the movies.